me, my brothers and sisters, as we look at Psalms 51, we see the brokenness of a penitent man who realizes just how far he has drifted from God. Right. He recognizes that he's no longer the man that he once was. He looks at himself and realizes that he's no longer the man that once wrote, "The Lord is my shepherd, and I shall not want." When David takes a step back and evaluates himself for who he has become, he realizes that he has lost his way and have come along traveling from the man who once wrote, "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Of whom shall I fear, and of whom shall I be afraid?" When David takes a look within himself, he notices that sin has come in and has caused him to want some things that had nothing to do with the Lord. His yielding to temptation has caused him to break free of the 10 Commandments. Oh yes, it was the occasion that when David looked on his neighbor's rooftop and saw Bathsheba bathing in the daytime, that he broke commandment number 10, "Thou shalt not covet." He looked at her and desired her in a way that God didn't want him to desire her. But not only did David break commandment number 10, but then he decided that he had to have her and broke commandment number 7. "Thou shalt not commit adultery." But not only did David break commandment number 7, then he went on to break commandment number 6, "Thou shalt not kill." David, as he evaluates where he is, as he looks at himself in the mirror, he sees that he's no longer the man that he once was when he was a little shepherd boy who stood before Goliath in the power of God. Now David realizes that he is breaking free of God's 10 Commandments because he's listened to his flesh more than the Spirit of God. Now he comes before God in the brokenness of a penitent heart, and David is literally asking God, "God, help me with me." He says to God, "Lord, I realize that something is wrong with my heart. I mean, I must have a bad heart to take another man's wife into my bed chambers and treat her as if she was mine. I must have a bad heart to be able to murder an innocent man just to cover up my own mistakes. There has to be something wrong with my heart. And Lord, if I'm ever going to be what I need to be, I need for you to create in me a clean heart, oh God." Prior to David asking the Lord to cleanse his heart, in verses 3 and 4, David realizes the fact and he admits that he has sinned. Notice here in verse number 3, he says, "For I acknowledge my transgressions, and my sin is ever before me. Against thee only have I sinned, and done this evil in thy sight." David understood he couldn't blame anybody for his transgressions. His sin lay on nobody but himself. He had transgressed. He knew he had sinned. He had done wrong, and now he needed for the Lord to help him with him by creating something in him that he recognized that he did not have, and that was a clean heart. My brothers and sisters, if only today we could be like David. If only today we could recognize that something is wrong with our hearts. If only we could realize that it's not everybody else's fault, but it's my fault. I'm in the shape of men. If only we could stop placing the blame on mama If only we could stop placing the blame on daddy. If only we could stop blaming the wife. If only we could stop blaming the husband, because if the truth be told, it's really nobody's fault but ours. We have to realize if we're ever going to better us and create in us a heart that's going to be honest before God, that the reason I'm in the shape that I'm in, the reason that my life is so messed up, the reason why I am depressed, the reason why I am miserable, the reason why I have no joy is because I've caused my own problems. Lord, it's me. It's not mama, daddy, sister, or brother, but it's me. When I look at me, I'm not pleased with what I see, because I realize it ain't nobody's fault but mine. It's me, dear God, and I need some help with me. I've got 3 reasons this morning I want to share with you as to why we ought to ask the Lord to help me with me. And then this lesson will be yours. First of all, Lord, I need some help with me because I've examined me. I don't like what I see. Would you say that with me, please? I have examined me, and I don't like what I see. Listen, the Bible encourages us to examine ourselves. Look with me at 1 Corinthians chapter 11, and beginning at verse number 28, even as the Apostle Paul was regulating them as far as how to properly observe the Lord's Supper. He encourages them in verse number 28 of 1 Corinthians chapter 11, but let every man examine himself. Every man is to do a self-examination. Every man is to look within and evaluate what's going on inside of him. Let every man examine himself, and so let him eat of that bread and drink of that cup. Not only there did the Apostle Paul encourage the children of God to examine themselves, but also in 2 Corinthians chapter 13, beginning in verse number 5, that's once more and again an exhortation for the children of God to examine themselves. The Bible says here in 2 Corinthians chapter 13, beginning in verse number 5, examine yourselves whether ye be in the faith. He says, prove your own selves. Know ye not your own selves, how that Jesus Christ is in you, except ye be reprobates. When I examine myself, I ought to see traces of Christ's likeness in me. In the way I deal with other folk, I ought to be able to see evidence that Jesus is living in here. In the way I talk to people, I ought to be able to see evidence that Jesus is ruling and reigning in here. Which is why Paul says, prove yourself. Put yourself to the test and see if you can pass the test. If folk curse you, do you curse back? Hello in here. Put yourself to the test. As when you're at the counter at Walmart and the little girl mistakenly shortchanges you, do you handle it Christ-like? Or do you show her from what town, part of town you was raised in? Hello in here. See, put yourself to the test and see if your actions are predicated on how other folk treat you. In other words, do you treat people as if you would like for them to treat you, or do you treat them like they treat you? Hello in here. Put yourself to the test. Examine yourself. Evaluate you and see what's going on inside of you. The thing with examining ourselves is that we often find out that we are not who we thought we were. Hello in here. More than often, we discover that we may not be what we used to be.